Picture this. You're in a remote, frozen wasteland in Russia, way up near the Norwegian border. It's just total desolation. Snow, wind, and the crumbling ruins of some massive old Soviet project. The whole place looks like a ghost town from the Cold War. But they didn't take everything with them when they left.
Right there, in the middle of all the debris and decay, is this one thing. It's a heavy, rusted steel disc, bolted and welded shut right into the concrete. Honestly, it kind of just looks like an oversized manhole cover, totally unremarkable. But what it's sealing is one of humanity's most ambitious and maybe most terrifying secrets.
You see, under that plain metal cap is the Kola Superdeep Borehole. It's a tunnel that plunges over 12 kilometers. That's more than 7.5 miles, straight down into the Earth's crust. We're talking more than 40,000 feet. To give you some perspective, that is literally deeper than the deepest part of the ocean, the Mariana Trench. It is the single deepest man-made point on the entire planet. And that right there is the heart of the mystery. The locals, they have a nickname for this place. They call it the Well to Hell. Now, the official story is that the project just ran out of money. Simple as that. But the legends? They say the scientists didn't just stop digging. They fled in terror. So you have to ask, why weld it shut so permanently? Were they just closing a hole? Or were they trying to trap something inside?
To really get how we even got here, we have to rewind back to the Cold War. While everyone was glued to their TVs watching the space race unfold up in the sky, a different, much quieter race was happening right under our feet.
The USA and the USSR, they were locked in this epic battle for supremacy. And yeah, one front was the race to the moon. But there was another one, a race to be the first to actually pierce the Earth's crust and reach the mantle. The Americans had a go at it with something called Project Mohole, but it fizzled out. And that's exactly where the Soviets saw their chance to score a huge win.
So on May 24, 1970, to celebrate what would have been Lenin's 100th birthday, the Soviets started drilling. Their goal was, well, it was unbelievably ambitious. They wanted to drill 15 kilometers down, all the way to the Earth's mantle. And for almost 25 years, their enormous rig just ground away, meter by painful meter, into the oldest rock on the planet.
But here's the thing. Before this project became the stuff of legend, it was making some of the most incredible geological discoveries of the entire 20th century. I mean, what they found down there completely defied all the scientific models. It literally rewrote textbooks.
The stuff they found just turned geology completely on its head. First off, they found huge amounts of liquid water almost 7 kilometers down. At that depth, with that much pressure, everyone thought that was impossible. They also found life, 2-billion-year-old microscopic plankton fossils perfectly preserved. And then the rock itself started getting weird. It became plastic, flowing like thick clay, and it would actually try to seal the hole back up as soon as they pulled the drill out. But the biggest surprise of all, the temperature. By the time they hit 12 kilometers, the scientists had predicted it would be around 100 degrees Celsius. They were not even close. The temperature down there was a blistering 180 degrees Celsius. That's 356 degrees Fahrenheit, almost twice as hot as anyone expected. And this extreme heat, well, it became a problem they just couldn't solve. Their custom-made drill bits were warping and melting. The equipment was failing constantly. It wasn't that they didn't want to keep going. It was almost as if the Earth itself was actively fighting back. And it's right here, at the project's breaking point, that the official scientific record starts to blur, and something much, much darker takes over. This is where the story stops being about an engineering challenge and turns into a full-blown nightmare.
According to the legend, one day the drill just suddenly started spinning freely. All the resistance vanished. It had punched through solid rock and into a huge, empty space deep inside the Earth. Can you imagine the shock for the scientists on the surface, just watching their instruments go from grinding through rock to nothing? 12 kilometers down? The question was immediate, and it was overwhelming. What was in that void? They had to find out. So the team lowered a specially designed, heat-resistant microphone all the way down the borehole. The plan was to listen for the sound of tectonic plates shifting. But what the microphone supposedly picked up, it wasn't geology. It was the sound of voices. Thousands of them, maybe millions, all screaming in torment. A chorus of pure agony and suffering, being broadcast up from the deepest hole ever made by man. The project's lead scientist was apparently so shaken by what he heard that he was quoted saying this: "As a communist, I don't believe in heaven or the Bible, but as a scientist, I now believe in hell."
I mean, for a man of Soviet science, a dedicated atheist, that's an absolutely unthinkable thing to admit. It was like a confession that they'd found something completely beyond rational explanation.
And believe it or not, the legend doesn't even stop there. Some of the more extreme versions of the story claim that after they heard the screaming, this bright, gaseous creature that looked like a bat-winged demon shot out of the borehole, shrieked, and then just vanished into the sky.
So whether it was the screams, a demon, or just the impossible heat, the project completely fell apart right after hitting its deepest point. The story of what really happened next, well, that depends entirely on who you ask.
That infamous audio of the screams from hell went everywhere, but skeptics pretty quickly debunked it. They pointed out that the sound is actually just a cleverly mixed and looped sound effect from a 1972 horror film called Barren Blood. But of course, the conspiracy theorists have an answer for that. They claim the Barren Blood story was a cover-up planted by the Soviets themselves to discredit the real and far more terrifying recording they actually captured.
The official record, on the other hand, tells a much simpler, more boring story. The project hit its deepest point in 1989. Then, by 1992, the Soviet Union was collapsing and the project was officially stopped. The reasons? The impossible temperatures, and, you guessed it, no more funding. By 2008, the whole facility was abandoned and just left to rot. No demons, no screaming, just budget cuts and physics.
And that brings us right back to today. That massive science complex is now a crumbling ghost town. Its buildings are literally collapsing under all the Arctic snow. All that's left of this incredible journey to the center of the Earth is that one silent, rusted metal cap.
So in the end, you're left with two very different stories. One is a story of science and engineering pushed to their absolute limits by the raw physics of our planet. And the other is a story about a door, accidentally kicked open, that should have stayed shut forever. Looking at that sealed cap, you really have to wonder, was the official story the whole truth? Or did they weld it shut so tightly not just to keep us from looking in, but to keep something else from getting out?